Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode, the Christmas episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how you doing this week?
Doing pretty good, Jamie. Doing pretty good. Merry Christmas to you and to everyone else listening to the pod. Happy holidays. I'm fully in swing with the holiday spirit, enjoying some nice hot chocolate. I'm a holiday junkie, all about the decorations, music, vibes. It's my favorite time of year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you and everyone listening. I love Christmas. It's it's a nice time. It's peaceful. It's quiet. Outside of the fireworks going off. But it's a good time of year. I mean, basically, Christmas for me, like I said before the show went live, it's 2 weeks of playing video games, drinking, and eating more food than I should be. Some say I'm a health nut because I eat healthy food. Basically, all year I don't eat processed food. And then on Christmas, I consume as many calories as I want. Screw it. But, this isn't a food podcast, it's a gaming podcast. We've got a lot to talk about this week. In fact, when I was writing the notes for this week's topics, I couldn't actually think of anything. So when I asked Logan, I was like, oh yeah, a lot has happened this week. I just kind of forgot about it. But before we get into all this stuff, and it's going to be a good episode, happy episode, because it's actually been a good week for gaming news, which has been nice. I will have a little rant in a bit about Splinter Cell, because I think Ubisoft has something against me personally at this point. But before we get into all that, Logan, what have you been playing this week?
Basically I've been playing the same stuff, like Thing Remastered. I'm trying to get through that. The the Spyro trilogy. I'm on the last game, and the last world is wrapping up. I have like 8 eggs to get before I can fight the final boss and finish it. So just going back and collecting some eggs and fireflies and other things I've missed. Been doing that. Balatro. Have a bunch of other games I'm wanting to play, including Indiana Jones over the holiday when I have time to just sit down and dedicate. Been really busy with holiday stuff, so haven't had, a ton of just focused gaming, but I'll get to that like you will. And yeah, just enjoying the season, man. How about you? What have you been playing lately?
A lot of the same games, but as last week, but without Avatar. I've put so many hours in Avatar, and I for some reason I talk about this game a lot, and like I loved Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. I'm probably going to be playing it for the next 6 months on and off. Um, but it's like it's an unusually large game. You know, maybe maybe that wasn't intentional. Like the problem is, I think when they were making Avatar, maybe they wanted to get that Far Cry feel, and they just kept on making the world bigger and more vertical. But I think that's one of the things that's very interesting about the map in that game. It's extremely vertical. Whereas most games, you don't really have that. You have actual floating mountains with things you can do, and that's kind of cool. But I had to take a break. I actually been playing a lot of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and every time I post about that game, instant hate. I gave the game a chance. It was $4.99, and it was the excuse me, it was the £99 bundle. So getting that for $4.99, yeah, I bought it. And honestly, the base gameplay is fun. The design of Metropolis, it is really cool seeing what Metropolis looks like in the Arkham universe. There was a lot of things that continuity wise make a lot of sense. You see like signs with like Poison Ivy from Arkham Knight, and basically a bunch of references to previous Arkham games, which I like. The gameplay loop. I see why people didn't like the game. I think the gameplay loop isn't going to resonate with a lot of people. But if people like a lot of action, pickups and powers, loot and that stuff, yeah, they're going to have a lot of fun with this. And I really want to finish the game because so far I'm finding the story interesting. But it is a cautionary tale where you have a developer that made, multiple Arkham games in a row, where like each one was better than the last. I think Arkham Knight was a bit of a step back, not having actual boss fights. You had to fight. Oh, you're fighting the Harley Quinn's 50 tanks, and then you're fighting Deathstroke's 50 tanks. Like, it felt a bit weird. This game does have actual boss battles, which is cool. But again, I got it for $4.99. I've also been playing Death Stranding. That game is so weird. I like that game. When it came out, I managed to play a bit on a friend's PlayStation, and I didn't understand what was going on. I thought, like, none of this makes sense. Why am I walking across like all these hills? Like, nothing made sense. And when you start from the beginning, it does make sense. And the game isn't just about walking. It's a freaky game. It definitely is a Kojima game, because the story is so out there that you kind of have to question, like, what was he on when he was making this game?
Everything.
Yeah, he took everything and just went wild. But hey, it works. Like, the story's fun. It's crazy. It's out there. There's a weird mechanic in that game, because you can't actually die in that game. But when you do, I'm using air quotes, you actually see yourself floating in the ocean. But it's not the ocean. It's actually the ocean inside your own miniature universe called a beach. And you have to float towards your own corpse, and then you see a baby in your throat. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's bloody cool at the same time. I mean, if people take something and play that game, they're gonna have a marvelous time, I'm guessing. But yeah, that game's cool. I've also been playing Indiana Jones. Look, we're gonna be talking about the success of Indiana Jones later in the show. I will say this: that game is clearly made to be in line with the trilogy of movies. The past two movies weren't exactly the best. Let's be honest. The opening 25 minutes of the Dial of Destiny are freaking amazing, and then it all goes downhill. But this game is fantastic. The voice acting by Troy Baker, phenomenal. He has to be, Indiana Jones again at some point in future games, which again we're going to be talking about. But like, I got to Indiana Jones slightly later because of the bronchitis stuff. And, when people were saying this is their game of the year, like, I thought, well, this is Machine Games. They clearly know what to do when it comes to first-person action games. But I also thought, like, how could Machine Games also do the mystery side of stuff, like the puzzles, the discovery, and that stuff? And that was basically my only concern. So when people start calling it Game of the Year, I thought they must have nailed that stuff. And I'm happy to say they nailed that stuff. Each area of the game has different artifacts which you can find, different puzzles which unlock different areas which hide artifacts. Like, it's a really cool game. And I think it's the kind of game a lot of people are going to enjoy. If you go into it thinking it's Wolfenstein, it's not. It doesn't have the action of a Wolfenstein. There is action, which is very good. But it very much has Dishonored, Deus Ex vibes, with like a tiny bit of Wolfenstein thrown in there. But it works. It's very good. It's also a physics-based game as well. So, characters ragdoll with the interactive environment. So there's a person you can find that's always just happen to be sitting next to a well that's covered up with wooden planks. But the wooden planks break realistically. So if you push him, he falls through the wood and falls to his doom. So, like, it's just very well done, and I really like. And the decision with first-person stuff, we saw the arguing online when that was first announced. Honestly, I don't think this game would work in third person, because you have the immersive sim elements with seeing stuff up close, like pulling handles, rotating objects in your hands, like looking for codes for things, and there's just something about being in the place of Indiana Jones. Now, the third-person stuff, when you're climbing, sliding against a wall, that type of thing, in third person, it works really well, much like Deus Ex. So I think as a design choice, they absolutely nailed it. Absolutely loving that game. What can I say? And now, I've briefly talked about this on Twitter, but I haven't much, because I think, people might know why. I've actually been playing a little bit of Dragon Age, the Veil Guard. Now, there's a 4-hour trial people can play now. And let me tell you, I was concerned going in what the melee combat's going to be like from a soldier point of view, because I'm that boring guy, right? I'm that person that spends months up till an RPG releases gaslighting themselves into thinking that they are going to play as a mage, as a sorcerer. And then the game comes out, and I pick Sword and Shield Knight. I do it with every single RPG, and I'll do it for the rest of my life. And I'm happy to say that if you play it as a soldier class, or the equivalent of in the new Dragon Age game, the gameplay is actually good, which I was shocked by, and I'm happy to say it works really well. Story-wise, I'm still in the beginning of the game, but I do like that it's level-based and it's not open world, as we've talked about before, the hinterlands in Dragon Age Inquisition. That area in that game is so boring, it basically put me to sleep. And I suffer from diagnosed insomnia. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, the hinterland, like, Logan, how boring is that area in Inquisition?
It is awful. I have never spent so much time shepherding goats in my life. And like I kid you not, there were, I know, pun there with a goat, but there was like 3 to 5 goat related quests about finding these stupid goats and getting them back to this guy, all for this low payout, and so many other fetch quests. It was just it was like, well, we're developing the game, and marketing or the execs say we need an extra so many hours of gameplay. They're like, say no more, we got you, and they just put it all into that. It was just awful.
Yeah. It was really badly designed, but in this, I'm actually really liking it. I think that, and I'm not even going to go into the story, I'm just going to talk about the level structure of the game. If you like Dragon Age 1 and 2, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, where basically each area of the game, its single purpose is for that mission, you're going to love it. Like, it is literally level-based, and I've been wanting more level-based RPGs. This, it's exactly that. Now, will I like the game later on? Who knows? Again, I'll talk about it in the new year when I've played more. But so far, not going to lie, the gameplay and the world building is actually pretty good. We have the first super chat of the day by Nick Wendland. Thank you very much for the $4.99. He says, I'm pretty far into indie, and it's awesome. The crazy thing is, and I'm happy to hear that, like, I love the Indiana Jones trilogy. And we've had some good games over the years. The Indiana Jones Lego games, they can be fun. The Indiana Jones game on the original Xbox, don't know why I said Xbox like that. Bronchitis is still messing me up. I apologize. But Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, that's a fun game. It was fun back in the day. It's fun now. And I think, while it does have that clunkiness still, it was a fun story. And for the longest time, we haven't had good Indiana Jones media. Which is crazy because they have this massive success of the original trilogy and then nothing. There was no TV show in the 90s. There was the junior Indiana Jones stuff, but you can't watch that on anything as far as I know. And like nothing was really done with the IP outside of video games. And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull happened. We all know what happened there. And that new film happened. So like if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you've literally not had good content like since the Emperor's Tomb and some of the other video games. But like really, The Last Crusade, which came out in, I want to say 89. So it's been a long time. And to have like good Indiana Jones content in 2024, it's incredible. It's incredible. I can't get past how good Troy Baker is. Like, he's voiced various characters in other games before. In fact, he's probably been in more games than anyone else. It was Oswald Cobblepot in the Arkham games. It was also the Joker in Batman Arkham Origins. He was also Joel in the Last of Us. Trying to think. He's been in a bunch of games. He was Batman and Bruce Wayne in the Telltale Batman games. He's also a Batman
in Uncharted.
Yeah. But he's great. What can I say? I mean, he's such a talented actor. And one of the most impressive things for me, which I don't think many people have talked about, is that he sounds exactly like Harrison Ford, but when he speaks other languages, when he's like decrypting stuff or he's talking to like native people in other countries, he still sounds like Harrison Ford, but while speaking other languages. And I think, that is just impressive acting. So, like, if he doesn't get any awards over the coming months or year, I'd be shocked because the performance is spot on. There are moments where you can hear Troy Baker over, the Harrison Ford impression, but I'd say like 99% of the time, it's pure Harrison Ford. Like, such a great job. And I hope Disney has really paid attention to the feedback of like his performance. Like, he has to play Indiana Jones in maybe future animated shows or anything. Hell, screw it. Get him as a younger Indiana Jones, right? Have him actually act, because he's so good as the character, and I can't really imagine anyone else playing the role. The villain in the game is he was also the villain in Far Cry 4. Nick just said in chat. I actually like that villain. Some people didn't like him. I thought the best thing of Far Cry 4 for me was actually the villain. I didn't like the open world. But he's such a talented actor. Like, he has to be Indiana Jones in future games. Like, Logan, from the clips you've seen and the trailers, like, what's your impression of his, like, Harrison Ford impression?
If you had told me that they had gotten Harrison Ford to do it and just digitally de-aged him, I would have believed you. Like, it is spot on Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford is not the easiest guy to try to replicate. So it's incredible what he's done. I fully expect him to, win the award for best performance. Unless there's something else that we don't know about coming out that's just mind blowing. I expect him to join Melina and
Yeah.
win the performance award because from the stuff I've seen, it's otherworldly. His accuracy. And at the end of the day, being able to not only perform, but perform a iconic character from an iconic actor and, nail all that is just truly impressive work.
Yeah. It's so good. And I think, a lot of people that jump into the game, like, if you like I've said many times, if you expect Wolfenstein, you're not going to get that. But if you go in expecting like once you play the game, you get it. It has Dishonored in there. It has a little bit of Deus Ex. There's definitely, I want to say 5% Wolfenstein in there. But it's a good game. What can I say? Okay, let's move on. You know what? Oh, I can do me a little rant now. Lovely. So, Nick from Xbox Era basically leaked the other day that Sam Fisher is coming to Fortnite. Now, as you can imagine, I did the adult thing and, the responsible thing and, whined about it on Twitter. Because, my God, I am fed up. I'm, as a Splinter Cell fan, we are 11 years since the last game, and we've had nothing. We've had Sam Fisher show up in multiple Ghost Recon games. There's a third echelon class or should I say operator in Rainbow Six Siege. There's Splinter Cell skins in mobile games, various Ubisoft AAA games. There's also a third echelon class in X Defiant, and we know what's happening with that game. My God. Well, actually, I'll talk about that in a second because we got some really funny information about that. And, skins and other stuff. We get an animated show announced, which is coming to Netflix next year. And I'm going to be that I'm going to watch it and complain anyway because I love Splinter Cell. But, in the whole, 3 years, there was a remake announced of the first game. And they said they were going to stay loyal. They're not going to make it open world. It's going to stay faithful to the original. Blah, 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 blah. And we've had no information since. There's not been any talk about it. Not any leaks. Nothing. And we had 4 pieces of concept art, I think 2 years ago. And like, I really don't understand what this is for. Like, are there a lot of Splinter Cell fans out there that hear this, this news that Sam Fisher is coming to, Fortnite? Do people really get excited about that? Because the Splinter Cell fan base is either diminishing or getting fed up. Like, I have played Fortnite in the past, and it's not a game I see myself buying skins in, but I just don't see why is Ubisoft constantly leaning on Splinter Cell to sell other games. I can't understand it at this point. Now, there have been some leaks in the past few months, fortunately, that apparently, internally, the game's been delayed. So there's no date. It might be coming out in 2026, the remake. However, apparently, this year we were going to get a Splinter Cell Blacklist remaster. Now, personally, I loved Splinter Cell Blacklist. It has possibly the best mission structure of the entire franchise. It has the best missions of the entire franchise, in my opinion. And the gameplay is amazing. Now, if you play that game on Xbox right now, I think it's native 4K or it's close to it. The only downside of that game is that game was actually made on Unreal Engine, I think 2.8, right? So its textures are muddy, to say the least. Well, with it being remastered, apparently it's going to get all fancy new graphics and all that stuff, and we could be seeing that being announced over the next few months. So there's some silver lining to this awful Splinter Cell situation. Now, while I cry myself to sleep later on, Logan, like, what's your take on this? Because I know you like Splinter Cell as well, but it just seems like it's a non-stop announcements for Splinter Cell skins, spin-offs for, animation shows. It's like it's anything but a game.
Yeah, like people make jokes about Banjo Bros and stuff all the time, but basically, like Ubisoft treats Splinter Cell like Microsoft has treated Banjo. Like they'll make some merchandise, trot out a little plushie or a little skin and Sea of Thieves or a cameo in like Smash Brothers or and then in Sam Fisher's case, like all these little cameos in their games or skins in Fortnite or like his goggles in Assassin's Creed Odyssey randomly, I believe,
Yeah.
or it might have been Origins. I can't remember which one. Um, but yeah, it's just like a sick joke at this point. It's like an elaborate troll job. Like it's like either they're scared silly about how to handle Splinter Cell or they just don't want to or what. It's just it feels like just a huge troll. Maybe they've been so focused on potential sales of the company or whatever they're doing, but for whatever reason, one of their most iconic franchises, great character, unlike anything else out there, is just rotting away in storage till they get their act together. And it's just very frustrating. Maybe, maybe there's a positive spin you can do on Fortnite stuff where, hey, you know, we're trying to attract the quote unquote new youth or the new people that are getting into gaming and stuff and bring back some older characters and establish IPs and stuff to introduce them to these characters to where like Smash Brothers used to be like the marquee, like you've made it or we're bringing this character back
Yeah.
and then people love it, they get a new game. Maybe if it becomes a huge thing in Fortnite, that will help encourage them more to do something. Like, for crying out loud, like, Fortnite has so many different variations, characters, stuff. It's insane. You've got Samurai Darth Vader, you've got Goku, you've got Mariah Carey now. Speaking of Christmas, you've got, I mean, just any one hit wonder pop sensation. dead franchise, whatever they can cobble together and have chew gum and walk, they'll put in that game. So I don't know, man. It's just been annoying, but hopefully they figure it out and soon.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, you're right. Like, I've never really thought about it like that. Like, if the skin sells well, maybe Ubisoft will look at that. That is a good take. Now I want to try and convince the Fortnite crowd to buy that skin in bulk. Um,
Sam Fisher is based. He's the best. You should
yeah,
get Sam Fisher.
like,
Yeah.
oh my! And the thing is, like, I'd be so tempted. I don't even play Fortnite, and I'd be tempted. I mean, hell, if they ever put N7 armor in that game, oof. I'll be downloading Fortnite tonight. But yeah, I want better for
Yeah.
Splinter Cell because like it's been rough for like 11 years. And do you know what the biggest insult was when Ghost Recon Wildlands came out and they put in that mission, and then that scene like went viral where he basically said it's only him when it comes to stealth, action characters because Metal Gear was in a weird state. Like the balls Ubisoft had to have to say that and then do nothing, absolutely nothing. And by the way, that mission that they put in Ghost Recon, it wasn't a good mission. It was made intentionally hard, and nobody liked it. I don't know why they put that in there. My God, like, and the thing is, I don't like. There's been a lot of Ubisoft stuff over the past, several months, like with them, people wanting them to close down. Like, I do not want Ubisoft to shut up shop, and sell IP. But like, they just don't know how to make games and sell them. Like, I just saw in chat, like, they don't know how to monetize Splinter Cell. That's nail on the head. How do you put microtransactions or battle passes or any of that stuff in a single player level based stealth game? You can't really. But
$5 for a perfect takedown.
oh god, don't give them ideas. It reminds us of when. Can you remember when Konami was charging for save slots in Metal Gear Survive?
Yeah, or EA wanted to charge a dollar per bullet for reload or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Like, can you imagine? Like, I think it was the head of EA at the time. I think now he works at Unity, or at least he worked at Unity. He wanted to charge
Woo!
$1 per bullet in Battlefield. Like, do you have any idea how much ammo you use in that game? Like, you don't even hit your target most of the time because everyone's so far away. But yeah, I just want better things for Splinter Cell. And before we move on from the Ubisoft stuff, I'll mention this quickly. X Defiant, it's shutting down. It shuts down in I think June or July 2025. Unfortunate situation. They couldn't compete with Call of Duty. People were calling it the Call of Duty killer because it was it's a military shooter. It was free to play, and no skill based matchmaking, and that was a big thing people were pushing for a long time. And it turns out people went back to COD, and as someone that played X Defiance, the gameplay wasn't fun. Now the interesting thing that they did about it is that they released all the seasons of stuff they had in development. So I think season 3, 4, and 5 worth of content has just dropped. There's also going to be like 12 maps releasing over the coming weeks or months. So like there's a lot of content and all the skins in that game, weapons and all that stuff. It's completely free now. So if you've downloaded it and played it before, you can still play it. But if you haven't, I believe you can't log into the servers, so it's just for people that have played it. But what a weird way to shut down a game. Basically give people 6 or 7 months to play the game. They can't make any money on it whatsoever. So, just Ubisoft. It's unfortunate for them because they have some of the most amazing intellectual properties, and they do nothing with them. Like, look at Rayman. Like, talk about Splinter Cell fans that have had it rough. Rayman fans, they've had it really rough. Rayman Origins, incredible. Rayman Legends, amazing. Those musical levels were the best part of that game. And then, nothing. Absolutely nothing since. Ubisoft used to be the best third-party publisher. They used to make so many different games. Each IP was different than the last. You had Splinter Cell, which was a single-player stealth game. it was third person level based. Then you had Far Cry 3, which was this amazing open world action game with lots of freedom. You had Assassin's Creed, which was an open world stealth game. You had Ghost Recon, which was a tactical third person level based shooter. And like all of their games were different. Rainbow Six Siege. Sorry, not Rainbow Six Siege. Rainbow Six Vegas. Amazing tactical game, first person shooter, also level based. And they kind of just stepped away from that. And I just don't get it. Granted, there's more money in open world action games now. But man, Ubisoft used to have, like, think about it like this. In 2012 to 13, they released Assassin's Creed 4, Splinter Cell Blacklist, Far Cry 3, Rayman Origins, Ghost Recon. I think it was like Advanced Warfighter, or what the level based one. I can't remember what it was called. But they launched a really good Ghost Recon game and a few other titles, all within like 2 years, and it was incredible. And now people are thinking they're going to shut up shop. People think that Tencent's going to buy them, and it's crazy. Like, they've went from like such highs to like where they are now. It's crazy. Hopefully in 2025 they can get the stuff together and put out amazing games consistently that people want. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Speaking of platformers, now Logan, I know you want to talk about this because you like platformers a lot, and well, talk about it.
Yeah, platformers are in the news again after Astrobot won at Game Awards, which, well earned, well deserved. It was a really good game, well done. A fun, celebration of the history of their platform. A pun not intended, I promise. Um, of PlayStation and some icons from that era. So it was nice to see a game kind of from a yesteryear vibes win Game of the Year. Like, I would have loved, Space Marine 2 to have won, because it like that kind of harkens back to an older generation of game style.
Oh yeah.
Like the third person, just like over the top, like dude bro to the max. Like, this is just constant carnage, fight just insane waves of enemies, just rally brotherhood, just like Gears of War with that, not Gears of War. It was awesome. And so I was just really happy to see it won, and that it sparked discussion. Like, there's been some more articles again popping up about, hey, maybe Xbox should embrace that. And there's been two camps I've seen on it. There are the people that are like, yes, they absolutely need to and should, and then there are people who are like, well, it's not like if they did it, it would do anything or this or that. And to me, I'm in the pro camp because, one, Xbox has always um, tried to, as of this last generation, have diversity in their portfolio. Like, they've had lots of horror titles, they've had shooters, their RPGs are on lock right now. Like, incredible RPG lineup. Action games, they've got the racers, the undisputed king of racing, you know, on their platform. They're just rolling in all these areas, but platformers and more family friendly type experiences that harken back to, a different generation is something they've missed and they haven't really highlighted much. And we talk all the time about Xbox says one thing and does another, or, they're mixed messaging on stuff. But one thing they have said is that they want, more of these types of games and things that appeal to certain audiences and stuff. And so why not, focus on that? Why not go all in? And I really do think they will. I think they realize that they have something with Spyro and Crash. Hopefully, Banjo gets de-thawed out eventually. Conquer, I just don't think that can fly in today's society. It's a bummer. I think he's funny, but I know there's a lot of folks who would have issues with some things from that. So, but with Spyro and Crash in particular, they've been doing well in Game Pass. They've been. It seems all but confirmed that Toys for Bob is working on Spyro 4. Assuming that goes well and does good numbers, and maybe if Crash Racing hits off, we could really get some more of these games. And I'm all for it. I'm all for diverse lineup, so you can appeal to everybody. And you know, I like all kinds of different games. One time I'm in the mood for Spyro. One time I'm in the mood for Resident Evil. I might play Tetris. I might play a visual novel. I'm like, just, you never know what mood you're in. So the idea of completely discounting a genre as only for yesteryear or only for a certain demographic is it feels uneducated and out of touch take. Like, I know they're not the biggest audience and the most popular, but I still feel like there is a desire and an interest in them. And another thing is the idea of not making a genre or a type of game simply because they may or may not win awards for it. I mean, there is a good chance that Xbox doesn't win a game of the year. Like, just from Jeff Keighley's show. It is what it is. Whether they're deserving or not, there's a good chance they just don't. It's been that way for a long time. And I don't think you should take that one show and their criteria or whatever they decide to put on there as the sole focus for, well, it's not like they're winning this or doing this or that. It's like there's so much more important things going on than that Market Fest in December that doesn't even include all the games for this year. If it included all the games for this year, Indiana Jones would have been there 100%. So just something to think about. I don't soapbox often, but I saw some takes out there that kind of got under my skin a little bit about this one.
Yeah, it's a weird one because platformers now, I would like 3D platformers. They don't happen that often, you know. There's a 3D platformer coming out in a few months, like a new ukulele game, I think. But like that's the only one I can think of. Oh yeah, there's the Gex trilogy that's getting remastered. Although I have seen that in action, and it looks exactly like the original game. Um, so yeah, and if people have played that game before, Gex Enter the Gecko, visually it's not the most appealing game. um, but I'll probably still get it because I love those games. And Croc, that game's getting fully. Well, we can call it a remake at this point because of how they've done the graphics. But like that looks fantastic. That's releasing in the new year. They had to delay it for polish, but I would like to see Microsoft do something more with platformers because I think there's room for it. Like they've got first-person shooters on lock, RPGs on lock. Horror games they've got coming. It's like they have to make something to appeal to the family audience, which still exists. It might be smaller than it used to be, but like Astrobot did extremely well. Like you said, one game of the year. There's clearly an audience for these types of games, so why not? Um, I am looking forward to Spyro 4 because we haven't had a Spyro the Dragon game since what 2001. It's been a while. But yeah, I hope they do more in the future because it's I don't want to call it a dead genre, but it's a very empty genre at the minute. Like Nintendo, they've got that on lock, right? They come out with a new 3D platformer basically every year, and it's good. People love it. It's critically acclaimed. Kind of just reminds me of last week how we were talking about kart races, right? You have Nintendo that releases this, kart racer, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It sells like 70 billion copies, and people clearly love it. Like Mario Kart plays so good, but every other kart racer doesn't pick up any steam. The Sonic racing games are good. didn't any. I don't even think it reached like 5 million sales or even two. Like it didn't sell that well. You know, the Nickelodeon kart racer didn't sell well. The SpongeBob SquarePants racer didn't sell well. The Smurfs kart racer didn't sell well. But like Mario Kart is a beast, and plus it is the best, handling, best feeling, kart racer. So like it's kind of like that as well with platformers at the minute. Like I guarantee that a new Crash Bandicoot will sell well. Um, the trilogy remaster or remake when they released in the UK, they were top of the charts. I want to say for 13 weeks. Like it was like a long time at top of the charts. But yeah,
They're very well done.
yeah, very well done. Hard games. That first one, like you'll be pulling your hair out because of like how difficult those games are. But yeah, I mean, I hope we see more. Anyway, we'll move on. Let's see. Oh yeah, Call of Duty. So we got brand new Call of Duty games listed on the Xbox, or I should say Windows Store, and it's been non-stop, like sort of points towards an Activision Game Pass drop. There'd be no reason for Microsoft to put these games on the Windows Store at all if they had no plans. But it's just like multiple different things have happened. Steam database listings got updated for Transformers games, one of the Spider-Man games, a bunch of Call of Duty games. I think some Call of Duty games got Steam achievements, the older ones. And like things keep happening on the side of old ABK titles. And like, look, when the ABK FTC stuff was going on, like I wasn't actually 100% excited for new games. I was excited about the back catalog. I want to play like the older Call of Duty games. I want to play the first Call of Duty game, which isn't available on Xbox. It's the only one. The Transformers games, some of the Spider-Man games. I know we will probably never get the X-Men Wolverine Origins game backwards compatible because of the way the licenses work at the minute. But I just want more games like that. And it's important. I talk about Singularity all the time. Singularity is a fantastic game. It's basically Bioshock, but in the Soviet era, but you have time powers. And it's fantastic. And that also got a Windows Store listing. Like, Logan, it has to be happening at this point. It seems like every week we're hearing something about older Activision games.
Yeah, like I am near convinced it is happening at this point. Like if it doesn't happen, then honestly it's a slap in the face to, and I don't use that lightly, to the community that have been wanting backwards compatibility or have been wanting to play these games on an Xbox again. Because if they make it where they upload them to PC Store and they release them and they eventually come to Game Pass, but they're only PC or they don't come to console or they don't have free or they don't have remasters or new ports available to purchase, or you can use your BC old copies or something, then they're gonna get like a they've got a problem on their hands, because then it's just like when they bought Bethesda and they had a whole wave of stuff hit the PC store that we know good well that there are 360 or OG Xbox versions of that they just didn't put on console. And now that they own Activision and Bethesda and all these companies, those licensing and trans publisher you know issues are not a thing. Like you own the network. You can do this if you want to. And so I think at this point, if it doesn't happen, it's just a colossal like what are you doing here? Like why are you being this way? Because all of the Call of Duties, but maybe one or two from pre 2017, have now finally been uploaded to PC Store for the first time. Like they just added World at War, which was another old 360 um Call of Duty games. So, like, pretty much almost the entire slate, there might be one or two still missing, of Call of Duty are dating back to the original one, are now in the PC store getting primed and loaded. So, surely they're going to be doing a Call of Duty Game Pass drop at some point. If not, then, like, what's the point? Like, that would be another, like, you say we buy this and it's for Game Pass and for the IPs and the backlog and to put all these things in Game Pass and let people have access to this library and play it. But then if you manually restrict it to only PC, or if you even go a step further and you only manually restrict it to PC, but you don't even put it in Game Pass, that would be just bat insane to me. But what do I know? Xbox works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I 100% believe that their January showcase, developer direct, which we'll talk about later, I'm 100% convinced that a part of that will be, back catalog stuff. Like, 1000%. I can't see it not happening. There's just been too many coincidences for these things to happen for it to not work out. You know, and look, there's a chance that I've got my foot in my mouth. It won't happen, but I'm really convinced it's happening. Uh, Again, just the Steam database listings, like Steam database pages get updated all the time, even if it's like a game that the license ran out. Um, but it's too much of a coincidence to line up with the other stuff. Again, the Windows Store listing. The Windows Store isn't the best and a most reliable store to use on PC. So like they make the bulk of their money on Xbox when it comes to the games. So like I 100% see these games getting backwards compatibility, being listed on the store, also going on Game Pass, and also like backwards compatible games really sell well. Like I put it like this: Skate 3 is almost always in the top 10 in the UK. And it's a game that released in, I want to say, 2011, 2012. And, like, it's an old game. And it's a skateboarding game. Do you know how niche that is, like, by today's standards? So, like, the fact that that does well so often, that I think it'll happen. Again, January events we'll be talking about in a bit because that should be interesting. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? Let's talk about the Final Fantasy stuff because it's been a roller coaster, man. Like I posted about Final Fantasy last night on Twitter, and almost immediately, I got replies talking about how it's never going to happen. You're poor begging and all this stuff. For some reason, there's fanboys that get really angry about Final Fantasy in particular, not Persona, not Yakuza. It's Final Fantasy. But the thing is, it's Square Enix that have said this multiple times. They said that more games are coming over. It's going to be a multi-platform franchise going forward. Hell, Xbox is listed in their multi-platform strategy over at Square Enix. So, like, it makes sense. Persona makes money on Xbox. Yakuza does. Metaphor v Fantasio, like, that charted in the UK on Xbox. Like, so, I don't think, it's weird. It's all about this gatekeeping aspect in gaming, and it's like, it's so diluted at this point. Like people get really invested in like hate when it comes to gaming. Like you always say positivity, like shoved to the side, like it gets clicks. Like bear in mind, a lot of the stuff you see online when it comes to like hate and stuff, it's all done for engagement bait. Like anger sells, and anger will always sell. Unfortunately, that's why you'll see like a video that's titled like the end of Xbox by one person, that will get like 4 times the amount of views than a positive Xbox video by the same person, because people like drama, people like the hate, and it's unfortunate. And that bleeds a lot into the Final Fantasy fan base on PlayStation. Like a lot of people are really entitled that franchise has to stay on one platform. Like hell, 7 Rebirth I think comes to PC in, I want to say January or February, and that's going to be a big seller. I've seen the screenshots; it looks bloody good on PC, and a lot of people are going to be happy. But like more games are coming. Like I know Jez Corden from Windows Central, he's teased it multiple times. The director of 16 has said that he didn't say it isn't happening. He said he wants it to happen, and I 100% believe and still believe that 16 will be on Xbox in the next 4 months. Screw it, I'll lower that down a bit. 3 months. It's going to be on Xbox in the next 3 months, and like there's rumors now that Square Enix is having a Final Fantasy based event in February. Little prediction: the remake of Final Fantasy IX is going to be there. It's going to be in the style of the Crisis Core reunion game. So basically, 1-to-1 better graphics, which is all it really needs to be, in my opinion. But I 100% think it's happening within the next few months. A lot of people are going to be happy with that. Like hell, every time I post about like Final Fantasy, like there's people waiting for these games to come over. Like Death Stranding, a game where its perception is walking across fields carrying mail, right? To like what it's called a walking simulator, and it was number 1 in the UK, right? Yes, its price helps, but it's still a game where people thought it was just about a dude walking across fields. And like, if you can't tell me that Final Fantasy VII Remake or 16 wouldn't sell well, it's deluded. But again, the fan base will prove these people wrong, as we'll talk about in a bit, because we got some really good news today. Like Logan, the Final Fantasy stuff, Square Enix keeps teasing and hinting that it's happening. What's your take?
I think 16 will be hitting Xbox. I'll predict February. I think with that event, 16 will drop for Xbox. That's my hunch, but could be wrong. But I do think it is sooner than later. And I mean, you've got the director all but saying like, yeah, like we want it. I want it to happen. It'll happen eventually. And then they've gone back and they're trying to make a whole bunch of stuff going forward, basically multi-platform across the board. So there just lives the little snafu that is, Final Fantasy VII and Rebirth, and then whatever they call the third one. I can't remember if they've titled it yet, but I'm excited. I think 7 is coming to Xbox. 7 Rebirth and whatever the third one is, they'll be hitting Xbox at some point. It might not be within the next 6 months or year, but I do think it is happening at this point. And I think Square finally learned their lesson about, having insane expectations and making a quote bad deal with PlayStation over Final Fantasy VII. So going forward, I'm very excited for their stuff. They're big supporters of Cloud, which is funny, Cloud in Final Fantasy as well. But the Cloud Initiative and Play Anywhere. Like I can play the Pixel Remaster games all on my LG Cloud device. You can play Dragon Quest 2 remake. You can play a whole bunch of different stuff. So yeah, they're tight with Xbox after years of being the opposite. So good things ahead.
Yeah, I was surprised to see how many Square Enix games were actually in the cloud stuff. So they're clearly okay with this, letting people play their own games via the cloud. It's just more options at the end of the day. But we will be talking about the showcase at the end of the show. I 100% believe we will see a Final Fantasy game at the Developer Direct or a partner showcase. Was it partner preview they call them? And we get one early in the year anyway. So that should be exciting. And if anyone from Square Enix up top ever listens to this, I have to point out to Death Stranding, like its price, and I know 50% off for a launch, £17.54, I think it was in the UK. Like that is an incredible deal for a game, to the point where it was charted number one in multiple countries, and like it was an impulse buy price. Like if Square Enix, I should say, when Square Enix brings these games to Xbox platforms, and I assume the Switch too down the line, I think they should
Oh,
release the
100.
game. Yeah, I think they should release the games. Don't do the $70 thing. Release them at 50, uh, or maybe 45 or something. Because people, like, especially right now, people are willing to buy games, but like if you price them right, people will buy them in bulk. I play this the Xbox store, and I'm sure it works the same on PlayStation and Nintendo. It works by revenue. Like The Crew 2 was discounted to 89p in the UK, and it charted number one. Number one. It made more revenue than GTA and FIFA that week, which is crazy. Like absolutely crazy that a game that would cost 89p made more money. Because everyone I've spoke to in the UK that has an Xbox bought The Crew 2 because of its price. So like the insane sales off that like one discount. I'm not saying Final Fantasy should be sold for 89p, but
A dollar, yeah.
yeah, like that I can imagine the headlines. But it would just be a good idea to just 50 or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on. We're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please hit like, share, and subscribe. We normally do the podcast on Tuesdays, but with it being Christmas Eve and how late the show normally goes into, it would be Christmas Day in the UK. So, hence a day earlier. And in the future, when the show starts again in the new year, it'll be Tuesday once again. If you want to support the channel with super chats and all that stuff, it really is appreciated, and it does help the channel grow. Anyway, we'll move on to some really bad news, which we got yesterday, and I think a lot of sci-fi fans are really heartbroken over this. I know I am. Glenn Schofield, the lead developer of Dead Space, he approached EA with a pitch for Dead Space 4, and it turns out EA basically told him to go screw himself. Now, I love Dead Space. Dead Space 1, incredible. Dead Space 2, in my opinion, is the best one. Dead Space 3 it's not exactly the best game. It has an awful checkpoint system. It was basically an action game. The development of that game was all over the place. Terrible. And a lot of the story just doesn't make sense. But back in the day, we were going to get a Dead Space 4, which was going to be a lot like Mass Effect. You travel from one planet to the next, leveling up your character with skill points, but each planet would be infected with different kinds of like necromorph type things. It never happened, obviously, because the sales of Dead Space 3 didn't meet EA's expectations. The franchise went on hold, or I should say hiatus, and then we got the remake last year, and the remake of 1 is... it's possibly the best remake in my opinion. They made it so you can travel the whole space station whenever you want. You can go back, go forward to chapters, or I should say different sections of the ship. They expanded on the ship. Like, it was incredible what they did with that game. And apparently development of Dead Space 2 remake never happened. Never started. EA is not putting any money into Dead Space as a franchise. And it was really sad to hear, because it does sound like Dead Space might actually be dead as an IP. Because, what do you call it? EA Sports FC 25, that prints money. The RPGs apparently do well, although we'll have to see what Dragon Age is like. But it really looks like Dead Space is done, which is it's bloody heartbreaking, because I love Dead Space. But yeah, Logan, what's your take? Because it seems like we always set up for like new Dead Space news, good Dead Space news, and then the shoe drops.
Yeah, it pisses me off, frankly. Like EA, it just they have a history of decision making that I don't agree with. Speaking of which, there was that leaked the other day, footage from the final week of Battlefront 3 development, the
Oh yeah.
one we were originally gonna get, and I was like, "Are you serious? Like, Pandemic was at the finish line, and you dropped this? You dropped this? This is incredible!" Like, I don't know, whatever. Just EA is who we EA is EA. But it sucks. I hate it that the original creator goes to him and they tell him to piss off, basically. I get maybe, like, in some aspects, maybe why. If they saw how Callisto Protocol did and it didn't do that great and it didn't have the best thoughts or execution on some stuff, to where maybe if he hadn't had that come out recently, maybe they would have been a little bit more inclined. I don't know if that played into it, but it probably didn't help. But I just people want more Dead Space. It's awesome. And they're making a movie, I know, at some point. Like, there's a movie reportedly in development. I know John Carpenter is a huge fan of the franchise, a huge icon in horror. He wants it to go places and do things. Like, it has support and it has a following. So the idea that they keep just pissing away all this stuff is just really annoying and heartbreaking. And I wish a studio like Night Dive or somebody else could get the rights to it if they're not going to do anything with it. Because, they brought back System Shock, and I know System Shock and Dead Space are not the same, but they're both, have sci fi and horror elements and other things. So the idea of somebody who respects lore and tradition and gameplay and IP and giving passionate fan bases what they want. Like, I wish somebody could get the Dead Space IP from them, or Dante's Inferno, or Fear is another dead horror franchise, from Monolith. It's just there's so many of these great things that for some reason these companies are so risk averse, they won't touch, but they'll just because they're in the quest for the almighty Fortnite money. And at some point you gotta do something besides just the money hunt. Like, you gotta have some creativity and some diversity.
Yeah. It's a shame because like it's the sci-fi horror genre just feels like it's diminishing by the day. Um, you know, while we all hoping for a Dino Crisis remake, Dead Space for me is like one of my all-time like favorite franchises when it comes to horror, and there's been nothing like Dead Space. We guess that what was that game called? The Callisto Protocol. Like, I was super
Hmm.
excited for the Callisto Protocol, and I didn't like how it leaned into the action a bit too much. Um, but like, we don't know what's happening with that as a franchise going forward. It looks like it was set up to be a pretty big universe, and you hear this with Dead Space. It just feels like a developer's not wanting to invest money into sci-fi horror. Like, I know EA, they love to lean on like just these games that make money. FIFA. Uh, I know the American what do you call it? College football. Uh, isn't that like the best selling sports game of all time in the US?
Yeah, the college football and then Madden NFL, and then 2K's got their NBA and other stuff. So sports games are always huge, huge money makers.
Yeah, it's a shame. There's so much potential with Dead Space, and it's just like we'll never see it. Such a shame. Anyway, we'll move on. Just like EA's
At
moved on from.
least we get isolation too,
That is a good point.
thankfully.
Yeah, that is a good point. Sega's pretty much like going to be the best publisher over the next few years anyway. Uh, Alien Isolation 2 happening. Yeah, that's a good point. So we have one sci-fi horror game coming, which I mean, I haven't seen a single frame of it, and I'm already sold. So, hopefully, we will see it soon. I do think we will see it in 2025, though, because it lined up with that leak that was almost spot on. Like, they didn't announce the remaster or the VR game, but hopefully we'll see that stuff still. Anyway, so Indiana Jones, right? Uh, Amazing game, excellent gameplay, excellent story. It launched in Game Pass, and on Xbox and PC, and there's been some, I want to call it grifting posts over the past 48 hours. And I'm sure you saw the same one, Logan. Like, how did this game come out that was optimized super well on Xbox and PC? It's critically acclaimed, fans love it, and nobody's talking about it, right? That's the whole perception
Yeah.
versus that's the whole perception versus reality thing. And it turns out we got some news today. Let me see if I can find the post. Anyway, this is by Matt Piska. I always butcher his last name. That's why I never tried.
Catella.
Thank you. Again, he says, anyway, I don't usually post stuff about this weekly ranking stuff. But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was number 2 best-selling video game in the US for December. Sorry, in the week ending December 14th. This comes to dollar sales, and this was behind Call of Duty Black Ops 6, right? So it turns out this game that launched in Game Pass, big AAA game, number 2 in the US. That is bloody good. So this game that people were calling, dead, saying it flopped or whatever, they were talking out of their arses. Absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And the funny thing is, like, everyone I've spoken to that's played this game, basically everyone that's told me that they've gotten into this because of, like, stuff they've seen, the clips and trailers and whatnot, like, everyone across the board loves this game. Like, I haven't really seen any, like, negativity towards the story or the action or basically anything towards it. So it looks like this game was a huge success, to the point where there's multiple big movie insiders that apparently Disney is wanting more games. And it looks like we could be seeing a sequel for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle by Machine Games, who is basically confirmed of making multiple games right now. So there's a chance we could see a sequel to this down the line, and also games by other developers in the Indiana Jones universe, because I think maybe for the time being, Disney and LucasArts and Lucasfilm, they've realized that the future of Indiana Jones, it's not in movies, it's in video games. They've perfectly captured what the universe is like, what the characters like, and as an art form, like video games, it's respected more than ever now. Like, they're clearly going to continue making Indiana Jones games, and I think that's the best thing to do going forward. Like, would I love a brand new Indiana Jones film? Yeah, but like, Harrison Ford is like 80 right now. He clearly can't do the stunts. Like, I don't want him to hurt himself. Like, him doing an Indiana Jones film, like, now, it's not exactly the best idea. Do you get a different actor to play as Indiana Jones? If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said Chris Pratt. But people meme him because he's in, yeah, people meme him because he's in everything. But like, I think for the time being, maybe give it a break and, like, just put out multiple games. And, like, it doesn't have to be just not just Machine Games making them. We could have all sorts of developers making them. They don't always have to be first person. They could maybe some, third person action games or whatever. And I think that's the beautiful part with, Indiana Jones as an IP. This game is set, I believe, it's set after the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, it definitely is. And there's so much they could do with the time in between those movies that they could really do anything, Just don't go too out there like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But there's just so much they can do going forward. Like, Logan, I know you haven't played the game yet, but what's your thought on it selling as well as it has, and obviously the continuation of maybe more Indiana Jones games?
Yeah, I'm thrilled that it's selling well. I mean, quite impressive for a quote dead franchise, right?
Yep.
It's number two behind only Call of Duty. I mean, Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto, and then you can include a FIFA or like a Madden or NBA when they first come out, like that first month of the season. Like those games stand alone as like their own entities, like their own calculations. They're like a different weight class. Like when it comes to a game, they're the Giga Juggernaut mega casual audience. Everybody goes to those. So, besides that, for this to be second only to one of those is incredible. Especially for, like we said, a game that hasn't had a franchise that hasn't had a game since OG Xbox. That the last two films have not hit the high mark of the original trilogy, and people were a little iffy on like how are they going to handle this from a developer who hasn't done this type of game before, and they blew it out of the water. And hats off, congratulations to Machine Games. They've made masterclass game on their hands. I hope that they become stewards of Indiana Jones going forward alongside other stuff, like let them do Wolfenstein and whatever else they want to do, like Quake. Like I would trust them with a Quake reboot. They've done a great job with the Quake remaster levels they've done and Doom remaster levels they've done. Like clearly they're a very talented diverse studio, so I trust them with whatever. I just don't want them to get Insomniac to where Insomniac used to do a whole bunch of different stuff, and now basically they're like the Marvel factory, and that's all they do. Like, as long as they're allowed to do, other stuff as well, I'm cool. And I'd love to see more Indiana Jones from them. And I know we talk, it makes us sound old, but back in the 360 and the OG Xbox era, and PS2, GameCube, whatever, that was when Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and some of these other franchises were at their height in gaming. Like, it wasn't where EA only had the rights to make Star Wars games, or, this company had the rights to Lord of the Rings or whatever. It was all these different studios did. You got Knights of the Old Republic from BioWare. You got Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords from Obsidian. You've got, the Rogue Squadron games from, I can't remember who did those, but they were awesome. You got, um, let's see, the Battlefront games from Pandemic. You've got Republic Commando, I think from Pandemic as well. And just all these great games from a whole bunch of different studios that had different takes on the franchise, and they all worked. And I think they finally learned that, you know what? We had it right back then. We should go back to what worked. And they're doing it, and I am very excited.
Yep. You mentioned the whole like boxing themselves into the IP. Like, I don't want to see Machine Games only make Indiana Jones going forward. I would definitely love to see a sequel. I think it's all but confirmed at this point that it will get a sequel. I'm just really excited to see more Indiana Jones games in general because, like, a lot of people might not remember this, but on the original Xbox there was an Indiana Jones game. I think it was cancelled in 2007. I think it was being developed by LucasArts Games, I believe, and it was cancelled. And we got a little bit of gameplay, and the gameplay was basically Indiana Jones fighting someone on top of a tram in San Francisco. And
Oh, it looks so cool.
yeah, and like bear in mind, this was like 2007, right? So like that little piece of gameplay we've seen, that still lives in my head rent free. Right? All these years later, like that's up there. I'm not even kidding. That's a Star Wars 1313 game for me. Um, Absolutely heartbroken about that cancellation. Um, but yeah, we're gonna see more Indiana Jones games, which is bloody awesome. I'd love to see different developers' takes on it. it will be interesting to see what the big studios are like, because clearly, like 2 films in a row, they can't do Indiana Jones right. But the first video game since I think there was a Wii game in 2008, but like basically the first game in like 15 or 16 years has done better to do an Indiana Jones story than the past 2 movies, which I believe together cost around 600 million to make. So, yeah, video games, that's where it's at. Hope to see more. We have some breaking news, and this is actually a little bit cool thing. On Xbox, if you're a subscriber to Game Pass Ultimate or EA Access, or sorry, EA Play, they've been giving out a free game every day or a free piece of DLC. As of now, for the next day, Titanfall 2 Ultimate Edition is 100% free to keep. So if you have EA Play or Game Pass Ultimate, hit download, purchase it because it's free, and yeah, you get to keep it. Because there has been some talk in my replies, like, it's not to keep. Like, it is 100% to keep for life. You don't just have to stay subscribed. It's a purchase, which is really cool. And plus, I've talked about Titanfall 2 way too much in the past. Like, it is an incredible campaign. They butchered the multiplayer from the first game, in my opinion. But the campaign, like, easily one of the best first-person shooter campaigns of all time. Like, literally, I'm not even kidding. I put Titanfall 2's campaign up there with Half-Life 2, which is some high praise. Logan, you've obviously played Titanfall 2, right?
Oh yeah, that campaign is, like you said, one of the single best FPS campaigns I have ever played. It is phenomenal. One mission in particular, the time travel, like a whole different realms segment in particular, stands out. But overall, just great narrative, connection between the character and his mech, and just the gameplay was pristine. And it is absolutely criminal that Respawn continues to, you know, troll everybody about Titanfall. Like, I know Apex has its audience, and it's a large audience, and I'm happy for the people who like it. Obviously, you and I both love the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games. So, obviously, love what they're doing there. Can't wait for the third one. One of my most anticipated games, maybe ever. I'm so excited for that game. But aside from that, it is a shame we have not gotten a Titanfall 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because like across the board, like people love that campaign. And like the multiplayer, like by the way, like as much as I talk about Titanfall 2 and how amazing it is, I will never talk about its multiplayer. They butchered the multiplayer from the first game. You run around collecting batteries so you have shields for your mech which falls from space. Continuity wise, it doesn't make any sense. Because in the first game, they fell from space, you got in, you had shields. Congratulations. The maps were well designed in the first game. The sequel, it honestly feels like the maps were AI generated. They were, and this was before like the whole AI craze. Like, it was bad, those maps. Absolutely horrendous. And they even put in a grappling hook. They put in a grappling hook in a franchise that didn't need it. What were they thinking? But the campaign, though, I could talk about that all day. Great campaign. And for people that haven't played it, ooh-wee, you're in for a treat, because, like, when I rate it with Half-Life, like, Half-Life is probably the best single-player, FPS campaign, period, when it comes to pacing, discovery, basically everything about it. And, like, Titanfall 2, I'd say it's maybe 2, it's just so well done. Yeah, the multiplayer for that first game, like, I don't talk about multiplayer much on the channel because I took a step back from Call of Duty in 2011, right? Modern Warfare 3 came out, me and all my friends got it, played it together that night, and then we all were like, this is bad. Like, none of us liked it. And then I stepped back, moved to Battlefield, and then Battlefield 4 was broken, and then when Titanfall came out, like that grabbed me in such a way where I couldn't pull my attention away from it. Like it was a multiplayer only game, and they nailed it. The map design, the movement, the speed of the game. It was faster than Call of Duty at the time. And like it was borderline perfect. You had these AI like members running around the field, basically like helping out and like doing objectives, and it made the game feel more live. Some other games now put AI squad members in the game as well. I think Battlefield does that now. But like Titanfall in 2014, multiplayer only, it sold over 11 million copies with its first game, right? And it launched on Xbox One, PC, and there was also a 360 version which had less players in the multiplayer, and it was 30 frames per second. Well, the sequel launched in between literally the week in between Call of Duty. I want to say, I can't remember which Call of Duty game it was. It might have been Infinite Warfare in Battlefield 5, I think. It was one of the Battlefield games, but it launched smack right in the middle. And worst decision EA has ever made, by the way, picking that release date, thinking it was going to be safe because it's sci-fi and it was different. But what a game! The campaign incredible, terrible multiplayer, but yeah. Hopefully they revisit that universe at some point. That was a kick in the gonads, by the way, when they announced that the Titanfall universe continues as the Apex universe. Oh,
Yeah.
like I basically had the mini sick in my mouth. Right? Do you know how awful that is? like Titanfall, pristine, beautiful, excellent multiplayer, and then you have this Apex. Like honestly, I think the Apex gameplay is terrible. The map is terrible. The whole look of that game, they ruined the universe of that look. Like EA, oh god, and like just the monetization aspect of it, like it makes me sick. But Titanfall 2, play it. Anyway, we've still got some big stuff to talk about. Oh, okay, right, here we go. The future of Xbox now. Now, bear in mind, there's not going to be any doom and gloom. This is the Christmas show, but there's a lot of good things to talk about because, Xbox, they've been dead for 20 years. They've been going to die for 20 years. You have these YouTubers that make clickbait saying Xbox is dead every video. Grifting type stuff. Lack of personality, so they grift. Well, it turns out, Xbox, they are making hardware going forward. They are going to continue making consoles, and it looks like they're going to be trying maybe something different next generation. Now, while it's not 100% clear, it does look, and bear in mind, Jez Corden from Windows Central has corroborated a lot of this stuff. I'll put the link to his article in the description after the show's finished. Start talking about how maybe next generation you'll have Xbox making a fancy home console, and you'll also have the handheld, but also other companies might be able to make Xbox hardware which will run the Xbox operating system as well as Windows. So it looks like the Xbox platform is actually going to be opening up a bit. We could possibly be seeing Steam and Epic on Xbox. Now, I have a long reaction to this, so I want to hear Logan's reaction to this first because it's definitely a different take to take their brand next generation. I don't think it's going to be the death nail for Xbox or anything like that. I just think it's a different take because look, we don't know anything about PlayStation next generation. I can tell you right now, they're just going to launch a PlayStation 6. It's going to be another console. It's going to be doing the same thing it does now, but fancier graphics. Right? It's going to be another console. Xbox is clearly wanting to do something different. What's your take?
Yeah, I find it interesting the idea of an Epic Store or a IO or a Steam or a GOG or whatever competing marketplace you want to throw out there. the idea of that running on an Xbox. Like, okay, so what would it mean? Like, would like achievements and gamer score accounts, like crossover? How would you do it? Gift cards, like you get a kid a Xbox or something, and then they want to get them a gift card. They get them it, but then like the version on the Xbox store is one price, but the version on the Steam or Epic store is a different price, and then it's like, well, will this card work for one shop fits all, or will it only work on the specific Xbox store? There's a whole bunch of issues they would have to work out. And then also, like, what if a game is technically available on PC in those stores, but it's not on Xbox, yet you put it on Xbox? Does that mean they're not playable on Xbox, but only through that storefront? Or would that mean that they become playable through the Xbox storefront as well? There's a whole bunch of issues to work out with that, but I'm open to the idea, but I do not think it is something that doesn't have some hitches that they got to figure out. And then the whole idea of making it kind of where PC and Xbox are almost synonymous, and like an Xbox is just basically a PC under your TV. Like, I'm okay with that as long as I can put it under my TV. I can play with a controller from my couch or my chair or whatever, and then play my games on the go on my cloud device or my Xbox handheld whenever that comes out. You know, I'm good. But if they want to say it's a more PC type experience, but I can still do that, then yeah, it doesn't bother me. But it will be, I think, messaging, as always with Xbox, is going to be the key thing because they're really going to need to drive home that it is still an Xbox and it will play your games and do all these things, even if it is revised and different than what we've grown accustomed to. And, you know, I wait to see, but I'm optimistic. How about you?
It's a weird one because I like watching videos and like documentaries on the history of gaming, and two pieces of
Mhm.
hardware stick out. That's the 3DO and the Steam machine. Because the Steam machine was sold as an idea of having the Steam operating system, Steam OS, on a console-like box, but could be developed by any company. You know, it could be Samsung, LG, Panasonic, anyone, and they would basically license out the software, and it was just basically a console PC, basically, and it failed. And I think the problem, and we see this with other markets as well. The problem with that is that you're basically competing against yourself. So like, let's say the Samsung Steam machine sells 1 million units, but the LG Steam machine sells 200,000 units. Well, they're competing against themselves at the same time as the competition. And for me, like the whole letting other developers, uh, product makers, make other Xboxes, I don't really agree with that at all. Like, I don't think it should happen. Because let's say you have Microsoft, they come out with their fancy Xbox. I'm going to call it Xbox 6 because I think that's what it should be called. They come up with this fancy box. It's clean like the Series X. And oh, what's this? Samsung come out with their own console a year later. It basically does the exact same thing, but it has the Samsung logo on it, and maybe it has more storage or something. And it's like, well, at that point, do you buy the Xbox box or do you buy the Samsung box? And like they've created a market where they have to compete against themselves. Not just Sony, not just Nintendo, not just the future Steam hardware, which is going to be coming out in the coming years. They are going to be competing against themselves, and I really don't agree with that. Like, look, I'm an Xbox fan. I already know now. I'm gonna buy an Xbox next generation. I prefer consoles in general over PCs when it comes to gaming. And with my Series X right now, I'm perfectly happy with it. Like right now, I do not want another piece of hardware. The console I've got does everything I need, and I'm happy with it. Perfectly happy with it. Happy with the games that's coming to the platform. Happy with the services and all that stuff. But like, I think them going the OEM route, it could backfire. Like, why would you want to buy a Samsung Xbox when you can buy the one that's made by the company themselves? It's like, look at controllers, right? When it comes to Xbox controllers, I will only buy them if they are one, made by Microsoft, or they are a retro collectible, like the 360 controller that came out by Hyperkin, that type of thing. Other than that,
Hmm.
I will not buy a third party controller. They don't feel right. They don't. There's just something different about them, and I'm going to be like that with consoles as well. Like, I don't think it's a good idea. Now, it could work out beautifully for them, but like, is anyone listening right now that's an Xbox fan? What would really make a Samsung Xbox more appealing than a one made by Microsoft? I honestly don't see that. I don't see it
I want a
working.
Mad Catz Xbox.
Yeah, oh my god, can you imagine? It would have like glowing lights all over it and stuff. It looked like a freaking
Oh,
spaceship. Um, but I don't see it working out. Now, when it comes to the handheld stuff, that's where my opinion completely changes. Because Jason Ronald, he's going to be at the Lenovo event where Lenovo is
hmm.
apparently going to announce like new hardware. Apparently, Valve's going to be there as well. The Steam Deck 2 apparently isn't coming out anytime soon. The handheld competition next generation, that's going to be really interesting because Sony's apparently working on a handheld. The Switch 2 is coming out in the next year. The Steam Deck 2 is a year plus away. So, like, I think the handheld wars, that's where, like, a lot of competition is going to be at. And I think maybe then the OEM thing can work because it's a very weird market at the minute, handheld. For the longest time, I thought only Nintendo could do a handheld. The Steam Deck came out, changed everyone's minds, changed my mind, because there's clearly a market for handhelds now. You have LG, Lenovo, all coming out with these handheld devices. Maybe they just stream, maybe they just play games natively, or both. There's clearly a market for the portable gamer now. And like, would you buy, like, could someone see themselves buying a portable Samsung Xbox handheld? Like, part of me thinks like that could work, but I don't know. And plus, you have to think about the whole compatibility situation. Games are licensed to Xbox consoles right now, Xbox Series consoles, and it's like, how will licensing work on third-party hardware? How the hell is like the store system going to work? Like, let's say right now, you listening, you want a next gen Xbox, an Xbox 6, right? And you go and get it, and let's say, I don't know, The Chronicles of Riddick 3, the video game, right, comes out, and it's on Steam. But you want it on Xbox. So you have two choices. You can get it on the Steam store on your Xbox and hope it works on your console because of, changing all the settings and stuff, or hoping that the company themselves make a native version for your console. And I think that will be the biggest problem because at that point, developers won't have to make native Xbox versions. They will just have to make a Steam version with, different options you can choose from. Now, at the minute, a developer has to make an Xbox version for it to work on an Xbox with, integrated achievements, controller support, basically working with the Xbox ecosystem. But if they put Steam on there and Epic, while it is cool that you're going to be able to access basically the infinite library of PC games, how does that work with Xbox ports? I think that's going to be a problem because as of right now, like, I want certain PC games to come to Xbox. So I'll use Homeworld 3 as an example. Well, I want Homeworld 3 to come to Xbox. But if this Steam thing happens, well, okay, then I could download the Steam store on my Xbox and play a PC version on my console. but it won't have integrated achievements. It won't be integrated in the Xbox ecosystem. So at that point, shouldn't I just buy a PC? Like, that's the worry. Again, I'm not doom and glooming. I think, Xbox's future, they have a lot of interesting ideas. Jason Ronald being at the Lenovo event, there's clearly something happening with Xbox handheld hardware. Clearly. It's just we're gonna have to see what happens. And I think that's the weird thing at the minute. It feels like the Xbox community is having to take the wait and see approach, which gamers do not like. We don't want to wait and see what happens. We want to know what happens. But it's a weird time because, again, I bring up the 3DO and the Steam box because those are two things that have failed in the past that did the same thing Microsoft's wanting to do. Maybe times have changed enough where to the point where it can work. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But then again, Microsoft is a huge company. They clearly know more than me. So, I don't know. Like Logan, I've been rambling long enough. Like, do you have any worries about them going the OEM route?
Yeah, like I said earlier, like I think there are, not to be, a fence rider, but I think there are some positives and negatives. Like, positives is more markets, more opportunities, potentially more games, accessibility, more people bringing attention to it, maybe brings more eyes. And people are like, hey, I love Steam, but I like the idea of being able to use my Steam library below my TV and, do this and as more of a console experience. I use a controller anyway. Now I can do it. So, like, I can see some positives, or like, there are some games that are exclusive to GOG that for some reason were listed on GOG. They got the rights and were able to keep them, but some other places don't. And then how GOG is like you own the game versus, DRM and that whole can of worms we won't even get into. But and then, like, there are some companies that'll only put them on certain stores versus others. So does that mean like those will now be on a console, or is it like, nope, we're gonna make ours this store exclusive to only this type of interface and not, a different, like an Xbox interface? And the idea of, like you said, like a Samsung, or I made a joke about Mad Cats. Like, you remember how crazy
Yeah.
accessories used to get? Like, you have this boomerang looking PS3 controller. You've got, you know, purple neon lights, holographics, see through, worm lights, and screensavers, and all kinds of weird, janky extra sticks added to controllers. Like, what all would we be seeing for third party, operating and, consoles? Like, you could potentially get some really cool stuff, but you could also get some potentially absolute dumpster fire trash that would affect your brand reputation. It's like, yeah, I got an Xbox, and then he's got an Xbox, but man, his Xbox is like cooked. It is awful. And then compared to this guy's, and this guy has like the super decked out, like, looks like some monolith looking thing. And it's just, I don't know. It opens up a whole bunch of possibilities, but those possibilities could, lead to fortune or ruin. It it's not the safe as safe as console making is. It's not as safe as the traditional experience, and I think it has potential for more problems than they would really want to deal with. Can it be done? Yes. Could it theoretically be amazing? Yes. Would you have to thread stuff very carefully and make sure all these things are dotted and crossed and everything to make sure it's just right to get what you want? Yes. So it's a boomer bust thing, and knowing how things have kind of gone, I just I would advise against it, but if they're going to do it, I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah. Again, it could be a slippery slope, but we don't know. I do think this is ways out. It's stuff people don't have to worry about this right now. I've said in the past, like, I have a lot of money in the Xbox ecosystem to the point where, like, if I had any worries right now, I wouldn't put another penny in. So, like, I don't worry like that. I'm fine. I think it's going to be fine. Um, I just think Microsoft, they just need to release good hardware, let the games do the talking. That's all they have to do, right? Like, look, PlayStation, they just release a console and put games on it, right? Xbox, they try something different each generation. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Hell, look at Nintendo. The Wii U was an absolute failure. It sold 13 million consoles. And then when people were thinking that they should get out of the console business, because that talk was happening in 2013, when like
I remember.
yeah, no, but like even with all the Xbox drama, people were talking about how, like, maybe Nintendo should leave the console market. Thankfully, they didn't, and they came out with the Switch years later, and it obviously a massive success. It's like 160 million consoles or something like that. Um, and like they have so much hype about the new one. So, like, Xbox, they just need to, and this leads into the whole marketing thing. They just need to release a good piece of hardware, market it well, release good games on it. And now that they have the studios to do that, they just have to market the games. I mean, look at Indiana Jones right now. It's clearly doing well. Anyway, we'll move on. Yeah, let's move on to this quickly. So the Xbox January Direct is basically all but confirmed. It looks like it's happening, and it has happened for the past 2 Januaries. There's been a lot of rumors over the past few years over, like, what could appear at these shows, and I'll tell you what. And I made this prediction. I'm sure someone can find it. Literally earlier in the year, that I said Oblivion would be announced in the January showcase, and it turns out that's the current rumor, and it looks pretty reliable that we will be seeing the Oblivion remake. That's remake, Unreal Engine, all that stuff, announced in January. Now, will it be a shadow drop? I'd bloody love to see that. I don't see it happening, though. I do see it being announced in January with the Direct. They have to talk about Avowed more. They haven't shown a lot of the third-person gameplay, which it's clearly there. There's been, like, third-person platforming and, talking to other characters and stuff. But they really need to show more Avowed off, talk about that game in full. South of Midnight is reportedly coming in March. Again, they need to show off more gameplay for that, which I 100% think they will do. I didn't write it down. Logan, what was the game that was apparently releasing in May? Oh, Doom. Doom the Dark Ages. I think that will be there as well. I do think we are going to see either Final Fantasy 16 or Black Myth Wukong announced there, because at the past, I think, 2 January Directs, they've had a Square Enix or Japanese title there, or a Korean title. So I think I think Visions of Mana was announced for Xbox on the last January showcase, but it looks like it's going to be.
It was.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be an exciting event, because funny thing is, this time last year there was all these rumors about multi-platform stuff and, like, negative Xbox news. The rumor now is, basically the only rumor when it comes to January, is that we're getting a Direct, apparently very early in the year. And it also looks like the Switch 2 might be showing off in the first week of next year. So either way, it looks like it's going to be a very, very interesting month when it comes to January. Now, when it comes to the Oblivion thing, we've talked about this before. Like, Oblivion's interesting thing when it comes to the game itself is its main story and how Oblivion gates work. Obviously, now with SSDs and instant loading, you won't have the 2-minute loading screen when you walk through an Oblivion gate. It'll be instant.
Oh yeah.
And that game, I love Oblivion, but going back to it, it is incredibly clunky. Some of the things don't work when it comes to UI. There's still broken side quests in that game, but, like, it looks like Virtua Studios has been doing the remake, and it's been listed as remake in Unreal Engine. I'm assuming Unreal Engine 4. Um, but I'm excited to see it in action, which lends credence to the Fallout 3 stuff happening as well, because apparently they are doing that as well. So I'm excited for the January event. It looks like it's happening. Logan, what do you think? Because it's basically happening at this point.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this dev direct. That will most likely be in January. There's the potential it could slip into like early February, but most signs are pointing towards January. I would predict January. And yeah, like you said, last year they showed off Visions of Mana, which was, very fun and well received. Unfortunately, like Square Enix titles, it did not sell that great, but it's also enabled if you want to play it, and it's on sale now. Go check it out. It's a fun game and franchise, and they announced some other really good stuff at their dev direct last year. I like you said, with the timeline of things coming, with Doom rumored for its time slot, you've got Avowed coming very soon. You've got South of Midnight, and then Outer Worlds 2 in 2025 as well. Like, and then there's games that we don't even haven't even had announced formally that are coming out in 2025. So this year is shaping up to be like a class of 98, 2007, 11, like an all-time year for Xbox. Like, they play their cards right. This is going to be like a banner, write it in stone kind of year for them. So, of course, there'll be the usual suspects who spin it and try to make negative, or they announce some killer games and awesome stuff, and then the first thing that happens are people going to run to the slides and check the fine print to see what platforms are listed or not listed, and try to make that a thing instead of, wow, this is an awesome game they're making, and try to spin it into something. Instead of going, you know what? The studios I like are making games that I like. I am happy. Instead of it being that, which is annoying, but it's the world we live in. I'm excited for it. As for Oblivion, I'm 100% convinced that's happening. Same with Fallout 3. Um, I find it interesting that a remake is in Unreal Engine instead of, the creation engine that Bethesda normally does. I know it's not Bethesda quote doing this one, but I don't know. Maybe it leads the idea to maybe what if Bethesda is looking at Unreal for some of their other games as well, like down the line. Just something to keep tabs on. But Oblivion was my favorite story wise
Oh yeah,
of the Elder Scrolls games. I loved Skyrim and the abilities, the shouts, the the skill tree was by far way better in Skyrim than it was Oblivion. Oblivion was just brutally clunky with some stuff
yeah.
and the bugs and everything. Like, I remember having to basically dance around diagonally up a mountain to get somewhere, or the acrobatic skill. I look like a moron jumping around town in Cyrodiil for 30 minutes to level up a skill. And thankfully, they got rid of that for Skyrim. But yeah, like, I'm super stoked for that. Whatever other titles they show, I think it's going to be a killer year, killer showcase. And I can't wait. I just hope people don't go nuts just because devs wear t-shirts or do something at a showcase again instead of just focusing on a game, or, the quality of it and the lore and everything, and turning things into things that aren't things. I hope we can have one showcase where that happens. Remains to be seen, but I'm optimistic, Jamie.
Yeah. I think it'll be good. And you mentioned why the shift to Unreal Engine. I think it's the reason why a lot of developers are shifting to Unreal Engine. Just the experience with it. A lot of developers learned on Unreal Engine, and why not? I can imagine maybe remaking all the assets in Oblivion in the creation engine, which they aren't familiar with, might be a bit of a hard thing to do. But Unreal Engine, I've seen developers whip up pretty creative things fairly quickly in Unreal, so maybe that's why Help will probably hear about it. They always do behind the scenes stuff. And I do hope when it comes to Oblivion, which it looks like it's happening, there is this. It wasn't really a bug. It was more of just I think an unintended feature, where in Oblivion, you know how in all of the Bethesda RPGs you can randomly pick up objects because it has a physics-based reactive environment. If you picked up a paintbrush in Oblivion and dropped it, it would stay in the air where you dropped it. So you could actually climb onto roofs and basically get to the top of the map just by jumping on paintbrushes. And it was a weird feature, but I hope they keep it. Oblivion was very creative, and one of the coolest things about that game was the amount of dungeons in that game. There's some very creative dungeons that genuinely felt dark. They were hard to explore because you were constantly being attacked by skeletons or goblins or whatever. It's just a genuine creative game, and we've talked about this a lot. Oblivion's main story is way better than Skyrim's. Skyrim has amazing side quests. In fact, the bulk of the story, I should say, the bulk of the game when it comes to Skyrim is side quests and faction stuff.
Mhm.
But Oblivion has side quests and faction things, but the main quest in that game is way more interesting because you have the thing with the war and the emperor and all that stuff. It's just far more interesting. Do you think it'll be a shadow drop?
It wouldn't shock me because if you go back to the FTC leaks from, a while back, it was slated for, a couple of years ago originally.
Yeah.
So obviously that was pre-pandemic plans when, and thankfully we don't have to use that terminology much longer for games going forward being in development. But it was during that era, so it wouldn't surprise me, that it's been in development a while and it would probably be ready to go. And a one-to-one remake or high bar remaster, especially, using an asset rich and easy to use kit like Unreal Engine, that it would be ready to go much faster than a traditional Bethesda title. So, yeah, I could totally see oh, by the way, and you hear the close shut the jaws of Oblivion or something, and then they show a Oblivion montage and it's available now. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah. I will say this: I think it's going to be an interesting year because you've seen so much drama in the gaming space over the past several months. The first half of this year was basically bloated with the whole FTC thing still. But while we're moving away from that, next year is really exciting for games, and people will bring up GTA 6. I'm not even kidding. My hype for GTA 6 diminishes almost every day.
I'm the same.
Just because I can't see it living up to the hype. We've talked about this before. I know I ranted about this probably last week, but it has lofty expectations to live up to. It's going to break records. It's probably going to be the best-selling game of all time, the fastest-selling game of all time. It's probably going to get 10 out of 10s across the board. But for me, I'm sure there's people listening that agree with me, but when GTA 3 came out, it blew me away. It blew everyone away. My mind as a kid, I was confused by this 3D world where I could just drive a car, do whatever I want. There was radio stations, you can interact with the environment in interesting ways. And a year later we got Vice City, which basically was way better. You had motorcycles, there was helicopters, there were airplanes. The map didn't feel bigger, but it was more interesting. You know, there was tanks, there was the military base. It was set in the 80s, and like that game's soundtrack is phenomenal. Like S tier game soundtrack. And like 2 years later, we get San Andreas, which was way bigger map, way more things to do, way more missions, more gameplay elements, more things to interact with in the environment, literally more of everything. And it was amazing. And then 4 years later, we get GTA 4, which was the first GTA in the HD era. And the amount of detail in that world, the story in GTA 4 is amazing. GTA 5, in my opinion, is disappointing when it comes to the story. Hell of a game, but it doesn't use half the map. And like, I don't know, just having like 12 years or whatever in between games, like it has Half-Life 3 level of expectations to live up to. I'll put it like this: I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is better than GTA 5. Like, way better story, everything. Like, an average playthrough of Red Dead Redemption 2, I want to say, is like 70 to 100 hours long. But GTA 5, you can finish in about 20 hours, the story. Like, I can't see them putting out a game that is better than Red Dead Redemption 2. And so a lot of eyes are going to be on that game next year. But for me, it's like, I think there's going to be far more interesting games out next year. Some people really don't like it when you're against the GTA hype. Or not against it, but not as hype. Like, Logan, what's your take on the whole GTA hype thing? Because, like, maybe it's because I used to like getting Rockstar games every other year. But like 6 has a lot to live up to, and maybe it's me being a pessimist when it comes to GTA. But like Rockstar, like, I don't trust them much.
It's weird. Is honestly like I'm not even old, but I feel like maybe I just am not the demographic for GTA anymore. Like I was when 4 or 5 came out.
Yeah,
Like I I enjoyed them. 4 is my favorite. Like, yes, Roman calling me all the time to get bowling. It
yeah,
got old a little bit, but I enjoyed it, and the world just felt alive. And I love the story of Nico and his cousin, and Patty, and all these other characters. It was awesome. It felt like real stakes. And I thought GTA 5 did a lot of cool things with the characters interacting and branching stories and stuff, but I don't know. It just 4 hit differently to me, just like Oblivion hit differently to me. So I'm looking forward to 6. I'll get 6. I'll play 6, and I'll probably enjoy it. But I just I'm not Gaiga hype over it like some are. And for those who are, I am happy for you. I hope it is the game of your dreams. I truly do. But I'm more hyped about RPGs and FPS and narrative based stuff than, pantomimes on society and the Florida experience. Like I live in the US. I know what the Florida experience is. I don't need the Rockstar version of that. So I don't know. That's just my take. Maybe I am completely out there, old man yelling at cloud, but
yeah.
that's just where I'm at with it.
You know what? I just seen in chat, the GTA 6 soundtrack is going to be very Zoomerish. That never once occurred to me. uh, GTA is
Oh
all,
gosh,
yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna feel so old.
yeah. So like GTA 4, I want to say had a really good soundtrack. You had some Queen in there, some Bon Jovi. Um, I think there might have been some Oasis stuff. Like, it was a good soundtrack. GTA 5, I'd say it's a pretty decent soundtrack in 5. You know, I think that also, yeah, had Queen. You even had some Backstreet Boys in there. I think there was some Led Zeppelin. But like, yeah, I've never really thought about the radio. Yeah, that's gonna be oof. And bear in mind, I
A
have
bunch of stuff I've not heard of.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I have like an extremely niche taste in music at the minute. Like I love like my Metallica and stuff, but I mainly listen to synthwave. I gravitate towards synthwave, and they are bands most people on Earth have never heard of. So like yeah, it's gonna be a weird one. I don't know. I didn't want to really close out the show with GTA negativity, but honestly, next year is going to be an exciting year for video games because like there's been so much drama, but at the end of the day, we just play games. Like that's what it's all about. Screw the drama, screw the doom and gloom. Like people are having fun with games, and like the next like 4 months alone is so packed. Like February has so many big AAA releases that I think maybe 3 games might get moved forward or back, because it's so packed. But yeah, it's going to be a great year. A great year. What can I say? I will say this though. Christmas is almost here. Take time to enjoy it with your loved ones, family, friends, or whatever. Because it's been a rough year for a lot of people, and I think that too many people take advantage of like gaming and stuff. Like enjoy your family, all that stuff. I think that a lot of drama you see online, be it YouTube or social media. Like, look, there's people in the Xbox community I used to talk to every single day. Like, they literally exited back in January because of all the gaming stuff. Like, people I haven't spoken to since,
Same.
and it's a shame, really. Life is too short. It's we should be enjoying gaming. There should be less drama about it. Again, over the next few days, weeks, or whatever. However you celebrate Christmas or whatever you celebrate, be safe out there. Have a good time. We will be returning in the new year for the show, back on Tuesdays, early January. I should be putting out a video between now and then. It's a video I've been working on for 2 months. So if you're interested in video games coming to Xbox, I've got you covered. I've got some amazing things planned for the channel in 2025. Future episodes of this podcast, maybe mid-January. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll actually be on camera for the episode, or all the episodes going forward. So there will still be gameplay, but there'll be a live video of me in the corner as well. So if people want to see me drink tea and be me, I'll be there as well. Also in the new year, I'll be doing on-camera content, which is very exciting. Because why not? It's interesting. It's new stuff for the channel. I've got a bunch of experimental things which I'm trying to give this away without giving away too much. I had an idea for this thing back in 2017. Couldn't figure out a way of doing it, and I kind of figured out how to do it. And as the channel grows, this thing is becoming very more likely to happen. So if you like video games, it's something you've never seen before. It's different. It's not a podcast, and it's definitely not a Let's Play. It's something new. And I think it's something a lot of gamers would like. And it's actually a platform agnostic thing, because it's more focused on games rather than the platform. Try not to give too much away. But anyway, I hope everyone has an amazing Christmas, an amazing New Year. Logan, it's been great talking to you once again. We will be on social media if people want to follow us, talk to us on there. I'm on Twitter as Jamie Moran UK. Link is in the description. Logan's Twitter is also in the description down below. I also do Threads and Blue Sky, but considering I'm still going through the back end of bronchitis, doing all three is actually really hard at the minute. like my brain is scrambled egg when it comes to multiple social medias at the same time, but I'll get past it. But anyway, Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you have an amazing holiday. We are out, everybody. Peace.